Welcome to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast. I am your host, Shana Southern. I am an angel mum, a rainbow mum, a pregnancy loss practitioner, and trauma-informed coach. I created the Institute of Healing Through Pregnancy Loss out of my own experience with loss in the hopes to provide understanding and healing, educating people on pregnancy loss, and creating more women or men in trained support roles. In this podcast, I hope to shed light on what I wish I knew in relation to pregnancy loss, opening up the conversation, breaking the stigma, and bringing real-life stories plus guest experts. Thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive into today's episode. Hello, beautiful souls. Today's episode is part 2 of a 2-part podcast episode. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to go back and listen to part 1. And I hope that you find value in part 2 of this interview as well. Now let's dive in. And like you said, it's not a place that they have to stay. It's not a place that they have to live constantly in their day-to-day life. Like understanding the trauma, well, obviously like the awareness is key. And like you've said before, when, everything sort of shuts down the word trauma, you're like, no, you can't use that. But understanding that what you have been through can be a traumatic event. And if it has felt big and traumatic, it probably is that you're carrying all of this unhealed trauma, and having that awareness and then choosing to act on it. You don't have to stay in it.
No. I mean, it is PTSD.
Yeah.
And, we often associate that with, veterans that are coming back from war, or that's a very common thing that people associate it with. But women have PTSD.
Yeah.
From trauma. Yeah.
I think it's like 1 in 6 women, if they've experienced loss, develop PTSD, pregnancy loss. So it's absolutely a real thing that your body is going through this response to something that's happened to you,
yes,
to the event. But that also doesn't mean that you have to carry that diagnosis for the rest of your life.
No, because it's a label.
Yeah.
And, too often when you go to a doctor or you have a blood test, you've got a label of something. Well,
yeah.
That your unconscious mind registers that is what you've got. That is who you are.
Yeah.
You have anxiety. Okay, that is what I have now. That is me for the rest of my life. Yeah, and they're terrible things to say to people. I mean, that's just the training of a medical practitioner.
Yeah.
They diagnose something. People go because they want a diagnosis. They want to know that they've got ADHD or they've got anxiety or they've got whatever. And so that often then makes it worse, Well, that's confirmed. That's actually confirmed that, oh, my goodness, I do have depression, and that's me. And that's a terrible burden to have to carry around, terrible burden. So that affects your physical health. It affects your emotional health, your mental health, your relationships. It certainly affects relationship.
Yeah.
With family and partners and friends and everything really. And it affects your career as well. You can't function in the world if you've got that burden of carrying around that label. And just because you've been given a label, think of that as, well, that's not me. That's a challenge. I'm going to find out how I can remove that because I don't want to be labelled, given that negative label. Yeah.
Sometimes it is like when you're feeling off, it is okay to go and get a diagnosis and go, okay, yes, this is what I have. But like you said, it doesn't have to be the label you carry around the rest of your life. It can be a challenge. You can go, yes, okay, this is not who I am. This is what I've been told that I have. This is not going to define me for then the rest of my life. It's not going to become, the reason why I can't do something for the rest of my life because, I have depression, I have anxiety, I have PTSD. You can support yourself out of those things.
You can. And hypnotherapy can do that. And of course, we know through the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton who's written The Biology of Belief and a whole lot of other things, that you can change genes, they're not set in stone. And it's amazing work that he has done. And, we need to be very careful of labels.
I read something somewhere too, like the brain's our orchestra to our body. So, and vice versa as well. There's a lot that our body can do that influences our brain, and our brain influences our body. But you can change your body on a cellular level, in your genes. You can change it. If you think something enough, it can go both ways. If you think something bad, negative about you enough, your body will physically change to meet that. But if you flip that and tell yourself something good about yourself, like constantly, your body will change to meet that.
Yes. So it's a bit like women who've had miscarriages. If they carry that trauma and they carry that fear into their next pregnancy, and the fear is so profound for many, many women, the what ifs. What if this happens again? What if, I had a miscarriage at 12 weeks and now I've got over that, I'm now 13 weeks, but what if it happens at 14 weeks? It's just all consuming. There's a much higher chance of something happening, some trauma happening during that pregnancy, because that's all they're focused on.
Yeah.
And so what the hypno-pregnancy program does is make sure that is healed and turning it around in her unconscious mind so that she can really focus on this new little person that's growing and have that positive attitude. And, hypnotherapy is quite magical. I've been teaching hypnosis for pregnancy and labour and birth for a very long time. And, of course, I do the weight loss and the smoking and the anxiety as well, but which many pregnant women have. So it's good to be able to do that as well. But it is just, putting that conscious mind aside and giving it a big rest so that you can access what's going on in that unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind records, it's like this giant computer that has recorded every experience you've ever had in your entire life, including your initial imprint of when you were in the womb, which is your first home. And many people still don't understand that and how important that is. And, the other people that I see for trauma of loss has been those women who've had terminations.
Yeah.
And sometimes those terminations have been, they're done for all sorts of reasons. And sometimes that reason is because of assault. Sometimes it's because of circumstances. Sometimes women have had multiple terminations. And that has not necessarily been their choosing. And so the guilt and the fear and the loss eventually just becomes layered. And so it's another aspect of loss that a lot of people don't recognise. And, of course, women feel too guilty to understand or accept that is loss as well, especially if they've been going on to have, a full-term pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's the supporting partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
That helps.
Yes. Yeah. Women who have had to go through termination for medical reasons, you're still, even though you've had to make that decision, that's what people see. You've had to make that decision, but you've had to make it for for the love and the safety of your baby.
Yes.
It's not ever, for those women, it was never that they didn't want the baby. It was that they couldn't. It was not going to be a viable pregnancy. But at that point where they were given the diagnosis, it was then the choice to terminate. And, then they've got all of that to process. And like you said, it just layers on top. They also get the society telling them that it was their choice and it wasn't a loss.
No,
So
exactly. Yeah.
it's a very hard place to be in.
Yes. Yeah. And it's different trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they were pregnant, it's still different trauma, as is an early miscarriage, a late miscarriage, a stillbirth, a termination. It all comes with, it's all the same, but it also comes with big differences as well. And that also affects men differently as well, especially if it's been a really early miscarriage and it's not been, from a male's point of view, they haven't actually been able to see and feel a baby in utero. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because the mother has the connection straight away. It is a little bit more difficult, being that was my experience, having the man make that connection. His connection to that was seeing me fall apart as opposed to the actual pregnancy part.
Yes.
But I had the connection to the pregnancy and then obviously all the grief that came afterwards. But he was just he obviously had all the grief, but he was also trying to help me because he just was watching me fall apart.
And, there are no words for that. There are no words. And sometimes, people say, or I've heard midwives say some really inappropriate things to women, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of it, Shana, as well, well, it wasn't meant to be, or, you'll go on to have a healthy baby and then you forget about that, or, it's quite normal to have, miscarriages. I had 3 miscarriages before I had my first son, and I remember a doctor telling me, oh, well, if you don't have one, your neighbour will. It's like one in 2 women have miscarriages. So, you just in the normal range, get over it sort of thing.
You're like that? No.
And I was a midwife at the time, and I just, it's funny, the little things that you remember throughout your life and little experiences, and I just remember having my mouth open. Nothing could come out of my mouth because I was so shocked at that diagnosis, at that analysis that was supposed to comfort me.
Yeah.
And that just adds to the trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't help at all. It just hurts even more.
Yes, and especially when it's coming from, your so-called health professional who, zero idea. But, doctors don't have really much, if any, training in psychosocial sort of interaction, especially in this field with women. I always think it's a very curious thing that women choose to go to an obstetrician. And I think it's a very curious thing that medical students choose to, grow up, become a doctor and go into obstetrics. I think that's a very curious route for a male doctor to do.
Yeah. It does make you question it and think about it a little bit deeper. You're just like,
Because most midwives are women.
Yeah.
And there are probably more female obstetricians around, but, it adds to the fear and anxiety inducing. Yeah. If you think about it, a doctor trains to treat disease and illness and fix things medically. So what needs to be fixed in a pregnancy or a labour and a birth? And that's the mindset that we have to change. The pregnancy and birth, generally speaking, is a normal event in a woman's life and a normal thing for a woman to do.
And I think it's just conditioning, isn't it? That you're just told that you have to see an obstetrician. And you're just like, okay, so you just, go along your merry way and you book one and you see them. And which is what I want to sort of touch on with you next as well, is because I wasn't ever told about getting a doula for myself.
Right.
So I kind of want to go into that. Like, what is the importance then of, having a doula and having that support with you through the pregnancy?
Well, I'm very passionate about doulas. My second book is Doulas, Why Every Pregnant Woman Deserves One. It's the only doulas book in Australia. And for those people listening who don't know what a doula is, it is DOULA. Lots of doulas are, when they tell someone they're out socially and they say, I'm a doula, they say, oh, you do jewellery.
It's like, what?
Doula.
No.
So I always like to explain what that, and it's a Greek word. It means mothering the mother, or I have had Greek people tell me, oh no, it means slave.
Oh.
Having been a midwife and having been a doula myself and training doulas, the slave I can relate to in terms of the number of hours you can be with a woman at birth.
Yeah.
A doula really is the independent advocate for that woman. So even if you're doing a midwifery model of care, you know, having a baby at home, having a baby in a birth centre, doing caseloading midwifery in a hospital, that midwife, her first priority is to follow all the policies and procedures. Now, some midwives, especially if you're in a birth centre or home birth, they're pretty good at sort of doing a little bit of advocacy and stretching some of those, but not to the point where a doula is. So I teach doulas about the hospital system, about how an obstetrician thinks and why they're making the decisions they make, how an anaesthetist thinks and why they make the decisions they do, and how midwives think, and how to negotiate around that, because a doula sees a woman all the way through her pregnancy, and she sees her in her home. She meets and develops a relationship with the husband, partner, whatever. She meets family, she meets the goldfish and the cat and the dog and other children. And so she gets to know her on a very different level than any caregiver she might be seeing in a hospital. And women feel much freer to offload with a doula about relationship stuff, what he really thinks about the pregnancy and the birth, how their relationship's tracking. She talks about anxieties, fears, all of those sorts of things. And then that doula is on call for her, and she is at home with her during her labour. One of the advantages of that is that it keeps women at home for much longer during their labour, because we know that if you go into hospital really early when you're in labour, and you're 1, 2, 3 centimetres dilated and they decide that you should stay, the chances of you having medical intervention are very, very high, because they want you to go in and they really just want you to stay for a few hours and have a baby and then go home. It's about bed management.
Yeah.
These are the facts. So if you're going to be there for a long time, it's like, well, let's just give this a bit of a kickstart, this labour. Let's just move things along a little bit. And women think, oh, that's a good idea, not really understanding that, well, giving it a kickstart or moving things along is actually called a medical induction. And how that works is, it's that cascade of medical intervention. So if you've got a doula there, she can advocate on your behalf. She can support you in, this is what we've talked about, this is what you wanted, and she can keep you on track emotionally, spiritually, physically. And one of the big advantages for dads having a doula there is you can tag team parking the car, you can tag team sleep breaks, you can tag team food breaks. This is a great selling point for a doula. If you go and meet a couple for the first time and dad's, I don't know about having a doula, what do you do sort of thing. And they really think they're going to be the manager or the CEO of this labour and birth, and that's great. That's probably what you do in your job, and I have no doubt you're really good about it. But, do you know how long a labour might be? And they've got no idea, so you can talk to them about that. And as soon as you mention tag teaming coffee breaks and food breaks and sandwiches and whatever, and sleep breaks, so that woman always has someone there who's fresh and alert and able to really, truly hold that space and be there for that woman. Dads are usually pretty on board, because if you've just got dad there, she's not going to want to let him go anywhere. But he may need to go to the loo. He may need to go outside and stand in the sunshine and have a coffee. And it just makes a huge difference, because that doula will just create a safe space for that woman. You want to make sure that when she's in labour, that she feels totally protected and totally free to do whatever she needs to do, without thinking, oh, someone's answering the phone out in the corridor, are they talking about me? Which midwife's this? What's happening now? What decisions do I have to make? As soon as you take a woman out of that primal brain when she's in labour, she's in her conscious mind, and she is just going to experience a very different labour and birth. She needs to just be able to really chill out and get into her primal brain and relax and focus on her baby and talking to her baby and working together without worrying about all the other stuff. And that's what a doula does. Yeah. Protects her from all the comings and goings or whatever's happening, and to reassure dad too. You know, sometimes at a birth you can look over and you just notice the expression on dad's face, and it's like, you know, what the hell is going on here? Just normalise it for him, because they've never seen it before. And nor has she, nor has mum. So what midwives assume is normal and that all women understand doesn't happen in reality. Even little things like, you know, sometimes midwives can say things like, well, it doesn't look like you're doing a whole lot. I'll come back and check you shortly. So a woman in her mind, especially when she's in labour, doesn't understand what check you means. And check you might mean a vaginal examination. And so the doula knows that that woman doesn't want or doesn't choose to have any vaginal examinations through labour, because there's no need for them really, unless there's some major medical event with mum.
It's so important too, because, you know, with my experience anyway, to have someone, if they were to meet you right from the start and go through with you right till the end. When I had, you know, midwives, obstetricians, all of that, they were never the same person. You know, I might have the same person for a couple of visits and then it's someone else, or that person goes on holidays and then it's someone else. And then at the hospital, it's someone else again. You don't have the same people, and you don't have your story that you have started with, you know, on day one isn't translated to the end. Like, you don't have the same person that really deeply understands you and your story and what you've been through and maybe why you're freaking out on the day. So, you know, even for that, just to have someone who deeply understands you, your story, has gone through all the ups and downs with you, and then can advocate for you. Like you said, we don't know the terminology, but the doula does. And she can go, oh, well, I know what that midwife means. And I know what my mum has decided she wants and doesn't want. So I can then, you know, answer that or be that person to say, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't. It wasn't ever anything that was on my radar. And I look back over it now and I'm like, I wish it was. So
it's a security blanket.
Yeah.
It is. And it is just, doulas are just essential, I think. And, you know, the World Health Organization recommends doulas. And the World Health Organization also recommends a continuity of care model, which means that you have the same midwife all the way through your pregnancy and your labour and birth. And so some women will say, well, if I've chosen that continuity model of midwifery care, I don't need a doula. And the answer to that is yes, you do, because a midwife has her role and a doula is your emotional support and that security blanket for you and your advocacy. And a midwife is never going to be in the room with you 24/7. They're just not. And even with the continuity models of midwifery care that are available, which are great, still things happen in busy hospitals, and that midwife might be suddenly pulled to another ward because there's something happening and they're short-staffed. She might have been up at a birth for 24 hours the day before, and so she's off when you come in to have your baby. She might be off sick. She might have been booked to go to a conference. I mean, all of these sorts of things pop up. But your doula is a guarantee of that continuity.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just, I look back over it and I'm like, I would have felt so much more at ease through the pregnancy to have that person that you could, like, if you were having moments of like, oh, I need to talk to someone, there was that someone there for you. I remember trying to call my midwife over and over and over, and there was no response. I didn't get, and then ended up just taking myself up to the hospital to get checked because there was no one at the midwifery desk. So there was nothing getting through. And I was just like, where's my support? Where's my person when I need them? Like, I'm freaking out right now. I need to talk to someone. So, to have that sense of there would be someone there to calm you down, someone that you can talk to go, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, no, this is this is what you can do. And then, especially going through pregnancy after loss, like it just adds that next element of, fear, and you feel like you need just that extra little bit of reassurance that everything is going okay.
It's also a label for women who've had pregnancy loss and they go on to have another pregnancy. It's a label that you are given. You have had this previous experience. So therefore, we'd recommend an elective cesarean section or an induction or whatever. And that is so easy for women to say yes to. Like, yes, anything for safety.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I would do during hypno-pregnancy is make sure that she has a strong belief in the fact that this is a new pregnancy, a new person that she is growing and birthing, and it's never going to be the same as what you've had before. And that is a really big hurdle for women to get through, and especially if you've got medical people telling you or, constantly reminding you that, oh, this happened last time, so therefore, we need to intervene.
Yeah.
And of
absolutely.
course that changes if in the rare event there is a major medical event happening for mum, ragingly high blood pressure or, epileptic seizures or like really, really rare stuff. And then, of course, that's where that intervention is really important. And you go, well, thank heavens I'm in, a great place like Australia and a great hospital, and I've got all this stuff in the rare event that I need it.
No more feeling like support isn't available to you. No more feeling alone and suffering in silence. No more years of therapy and walking away feeling like something is missing. You have the safe space to take off your mask, feel seen, validated, understood, and supported. Introducing the self-healing immersion after pregnancy loss, an empowering and transformative 6-week program designed to guide you, the angel mom or dad, on a journey from immense heartache and emotional overwhelm to finding clarity, peace, and calm in your heart, mind, and body. In this program, you'll discover the 6 key elements that unlock healing and help you return to love for yourself and your life. Join us on the self-healing immersion journey and embark on a path of profound healing and self-discovery. Find clarity, peace, and the ability to navigate life's challenges with grace. Don't wait any longer to embrace the life you deserve. Join the self-healing immersion. To enrol into the program, visit our website at www.shanasouthern.com. Follow along on the podcast Instagram page at pregnancyloss_podcast to learn more or find the link in my bio to enrol. And subscribe to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast on your favourite podcast platform. Start your journey towards clarity, peace, and returning to love today. I am ready to guide you. Yeah. And like you said, there are things that are used probably a little bit too frequently, which should be used in more rare cases.
Oh, the intervention rates are huge, absolutely huge, much higher in private hospitals than public hospitals. You know, you can have in some private hospitals, you can have 70, 80% epidural rate. You know, that is shocking. You know, the World Health Organization recommend that, you know, elective caesarean sections, for example, should be in a country like Australia, should be about 8 to 10%.
Mm.
So elective caesarean sections are around 30, 40, 50%. Why?
Mm.
And it's because it's very easy for an obstetrician usually to present a case to mum that this is for, you know, the benefit of her and her baby. It's a very easy sell. But behind that is often another agenda, which a doula helps mum realise and navigate. Yeah.
So important. And like you said, like there's a lot of things that they're just offering probably that aren't necessarily warranted, that a doula is going to be able to help you process and educate you more and process so that you're making more of an informed decision rather than just, well, the doctor told me I had to.
And sometimes a doula will, you know, if there's a big issue around, you know, an obstetrician talking to a couple and convincing them that some medical intervention is necessary, I know that there's no valid medical reason for that. I would go to the consultation with that couple and help that conversation along. And you'd be amazed at how powerful that is. And it just gives mum the confidence to be able to, yeah, I'm in charge of this, and get back to what is your gut feeling. Have a conversation with your unborn baby. Are they okay in there, you know? And they will let you know if you've developed that bond and that attachment and that relationship with that baby during pregnancy. You will know whether the baby is okay. And you will also know how baby would like to enter the world.
So beautiful and so empowering. I want to thank you, Susan, for everything that you have shared today. I could just keep talking to you.
Well, as you know, Shana, I can keep talking forever.
Well, this episode will end up being 2 hours long.
Look, I think these are really, really important messages to get out. So,
yeah,
thank you for the opportunity and for the work that you do as well, because, you know, it is overlooked. Pregnancy loss is, thank heavens, it doesn't happen very often, but it is a profound trauma. And, you know, there are many people who don't acknowledge that, many people in the medical field who don't acknowledge that trauma and how that can be, that can influence every aspect of a woman's life, and especially for future pregnancies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the medical field don't necessarily acknowledge it. And so
they don't understand it on an emotional level. They just don't. They don't have that capacity.
And then it's hard for a woman to be able to acknowledge that, because they're like, if my doctor isn't, you know, acknowledging it, how can I do that?
Yes.
And, you know, like you said, it is, you can absolutely acknowledge your experience as trauma, because if it felt big, then it is.
Yes, exactly.
Even though your professional, your doctor, whoever you saw, didn't acknowledge it as that. And it does, it affects every single area of your life. It has a ripple effect through every aspect of your life, and including, like we've spoken about before, pregnancy and passing on that trauma to our babies, to our unborn babies. So everything that we've spoken about today is just so, so valuable, so important. So I hope whoever's listened in is taking what is obviously resonating, but being able to just reflect over your own story and go, okay, like what felt big for me? Where might I have experienced this trauma, and where can I give myself more compassion and potentially reach out for support to start processing that trauma, because it's not something that we can do on our own. Trauma is something bigger than that.
And you don't have to live with this. You don't have to live with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say, look, everyone around me, including, you know, a GP or whoever you've seen, including my family and everyone else, said, you know, well, yeah, that happened and that was sad, but isn't it time you moved on and got over it? And, you know, so women feel almost guilty about acknowledging it.
Yeah. Yeah, because everyone else around them isn't.
No.
So, yeah, it's just, you know, maybe taking the moment, putting your blinders on, not caring about what anyone else is saying and thinking about you, and just going, you know what, I need to do this for me.
Yes.
Focus on me. That's it.
Yes.
Not what anyone else is saying or doing, because it is such an important part for your healing and recovery.
Absolutely. And you will be amazed at, you know, people just say, I feel like a curtain has just been lifted, you know, just opened up, and I feel a calm freedom.
And wouldn't that be nice? Like to feel that after feeling so heavy and so, you know, having that inner turmoil, and then to feel calm and, you know, confident in yourself again. Like the transformation from the pain and the heaviness to feeling that lightness would, like you said, it would like this veil, this completely different feelings and sensations.
And it's a beautiful thing to see that happen in a woman. Yeah. And you can see it just in her whole face changes, you know.
Oh, and even the way you hold yourself would change too. The way you walk, the way you physically hold your body would change. You know, when we are going through trauma, we tend to, our body sort of caves in and curls in, and we tend to, it's almost like our body's protecting itself. But when we can start to release that trauma, our physical body, the way that we stand and walk and hold ourselves can change. And like you, almost like you're opening up yourself to the world again.
And it's giving women back their power.
Yeah.
Because for every awful experience you have in life and every trauma you have, there are learnings to take from that. And they are positive learnings that no one else has. So you can take that into other situations in your life that are just going to empower you to move through the rest of your life and your career and your family and your mothering with so much more intelligence and awareness.
Yeah, very, very empowering. So where can people find you and your courses or what you've created?
So through the Birthright Training Academy and through Susan Ross Hypnotherapy. And I do, all our training courses are online. Thank you, COVID. And so it means that they've had I've rewritten all of them, and there's ongoing mentoring throughout their training courses. They're really fun. We've just launched our revamped Inside Birth Educator training, so that's really exciting. And also for therapy through Susan Ross Hypnotherapy. And I do all of that on Zoom.
Yeah, perfect.
I love Zoom. Thank you.
Yeah, it made us shift everything around.
Yeah, it was a very funny thing the other day on the news. Apparently Zoom have issued a statement to all their workers to come back into the office and stop using Zoom. They want them to come back into a building. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, good one, Zoom.
Yes.
Oh, dear. Well, I'll make sure that all of your links are posted in the show notes so people can find you at one click and reach out to you if they need to. But I want to thank you, Susan, for coming on to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast.
Thank you. It's been lovely to chat, and congratulations on starting this and the work that you're doing, because I think it is really, really important.
Thank you so much. Everything I'm creating is out of what I needed and what I was searching for. So, I hope that, I'm assuming if I was searching for it, there'd be other people searching for it.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
There is.
So, yeah, thank you so much for that acknowledgement.
Thank you.
Thank you to all that have listened in. If this episode was valuable to you, I invite you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode. Thank you for listening in with me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Take a screenshot of this episode, share it to social media, and tag me at instituteofhealing_PL. I love seeing what is resonating with you right now. If you want to chat further, I invite you to connect with me through Instagram. Head over and follow my Instagram account, send me a DM, and let's open the communication. If you want to know more about how you can be the support for others, head to the show notes and fill out the application form for the Pregnancy Loss Practitioner certification. I want to also note here that what I share within the episodes is not medical advice. If you need further support, please consult your doctor. Thank you again. Much love to you. Be gentle with yourself, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode.